The question of whether Jesus actually condemned sinners is one of the most compelling mysteries in his teachings, one that might surprise many. Did Jesus, a figure often associated with forgiveness and compassion, ever truly condemn those who had strayed from the path? The Gospels present a complex picture. Jesus, known for his fierce opposition to hypocrisy and injustice, also famously dined with sinners, defended the adulterous woman from being stoned, and welcomed tax collectors into his circle. So, what was his real approach? The truth is that Jesus didn't ignore wrongdoing, but he redefined the way we approach it, demonstrating a unique balance of accountability and grace. His approach challenges our perceptions of justice, compassion, and redemption and reveals a path that values love and understanding over punishment. One of the most striking aspects of Jesus' interactions with sinners is his refusal to condemn them outright. For instance, in the story of the woman caught in adultery, religious leaders brought her before Jesus, expecting him to enforce the law. But Jesus instead said, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. With this powerful statement, he redirected attention away from judgment and towards self-reflection. Jesus did not condone the sin, but he refused to condemn the sinner, emphasizing that all are worthy of mercy. His message here implies that true justice isn't about public condemnation but personal transformation. Jesus' approach reveals a compassionate belief in every person's potential for change, suggesting that condemnation closes the door to redemption while mercy keeps it open. Another significant aspect of Jesus' approach is his focus on compassion over legalism. In his time, religious laws were often used as rigid standards to measure a person's worthiness, leaving little room for grace. However, Jesus repeatedly challenged this strict legalism, calling for a deeper understanding of the law's purpose. When questioned about dining with sinners, he responded, I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. This statement reveals that Jesus saw his mission not as one of casting out or condemning people but of bringing them back into alignment with God's love. His compassion was revolutionary. It offered a way back for those whom society had written off. This approach invites us to see that true spiritual transformation doesn't happen through exclusion or punishment, but through love, understanding, and invitation. A further layer to Jesus' interactions with sinners is his rejection of hypocrisy among religious leaders. While he did not condemn those who had fallen, he was often fierce in his rebukes of religious leaders who judged others harshly while failing to acknowledge their own failings. Jesus called them whitewashed tombs, appearing righteous on the outside but hiding corruption within. His strong words were aimed at exposing the dangers of self-righteousness, teaching that those who judge harshly are often blind to their own need for forgiveness. This contrast between his treatment of sinners and his confrontation of the self-righteous reflects a belief that humility and self-awareness are essential to genuine spiritual growth. Jesus seemed to emphasize that transformation requires honesty with oneself, not the public condemnation of others. Jesus' refusal to condemn sinners is also a lesson in seeing the person beyond the mistake. In the story of Zacchaeus, the tax collector who was viewed as corrupt and greedy, Jesus didn't denounce him. Instead, he invited himself to Zacchaeus' home. This unexpected act of acceptance inspired Zacchaeus to repent and pledge half of his wealth to the poor. Jesus' approach shows that when we treat people with dignity, they are more likely to recognize their own flaws and seek to improve. His interactions suggest that condemnation pushes people further into shame, while acceptance offers them the courage to change. Jesus saw people as more than their mistakes, believing that compassion could inspire a transformation from within. Moreover, Jesus' treatment of sinners emphasized the importance of inner repentance over outward appearances. For Jesus, repentance wasn't just about regret or public apology, it was about a sincere, inner shift of heart and mind. When he spoke to the woman at the well, a Samaritan considered sinful by her community, he didn't shame her. Instead, he engaged her in conversation, offering her living water and an opportunity for a new beginning. This interaction reveals that Jesus valued repentance as a personal, heartfelt decision rather than a public display. His approach suggests that true change comes from within and cannot be forced through shame or pressure. He showed that God's grace meets us where we are, inviting us to reflect, renew, and realign with our highest selves. Another critical aspect of Jesus' approach is his focus on healing rather than punishment. Throughout the Gospels, Jesus is described as a healer, both physically and spiritually. He saw sin as a form of brokenness that needed healing, not condemnation. When he healed those who were outcasts, like the lepers or the blind, he restored them not only to physical health but to social belonging, welcoming them back into community life. His actions show that sin, for Jesus, was something that separated people from love, community, and God, not an unforgivable stain. His approach suggests that instead of condemning, we are called to support others in their journey toward wholeness, understanding that healing is often the first step toward meaningful change. Jesus' interactions also reveal the transformative power of forgiveness. One of the most powerful examples is his plea on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Even in his final moments, he extended forgiveness to those who harmed him. This act exemplifies Jesus' belief that forgiveness is a radical act of strength, breaking the cycle of harm and hatred. By forgiving, he modeled a path of liberation, showing that forgiveness frees the giver and the receiver alike. Jesus' forgiveness is an invitation to transcend resentment, to believe in the possibility of change, and to recognize that love and mercy have the power to overcome even the greatest wrongs. Additionally, Jesus' approach to sin offers a new understanding of God's unconditional love. Through parables like the prodigal son, where a father embraces his wayward son without punishment, Jesus revealed a God who welcomes us back regardless of our mistakes. This image of God defied the expectations of harsh judgment and instead painted a picture of boundless grace. Jesus taught that God's love is always available, inviting everyone to return and renew their lives. His teachings on God's love remind us that we are never beyond redemption and that divine love is an anchor that holds us through even our darkest moments. Jesus' approach to sinners reveals a perspective that redefines justice, forgiveness, and transformation. His refusal to condemn wasn't about ignoring wrongdoing. It was about creating space for healing, growth, and connection to God. His message invites us to see sin not as an identity but as a part of the human experience that, with compassion and forgiveness, can lead us toward greater wholeness. Jesus showed that true strength is found in mercy, that true justice is restorative, and that real transformation begins with love. Jesus' interactions with sinners highlight a vision of divine love that challenges conventional ideas of justice and invites us to view each person, regardless of their flaws, as inherently worthy of grace. A significant aspect of Jesus' approach is his emphasis on personal accountability rather than public shame. While Jesus never excused harmful behavior, he redirected focus from outward judgment to inner responsibility. When he met the Samaritan woman at the well, he spoke to her with respect, despite knowing her history. Rather than shaming her, he gently acknowledged her past and offered her the opportunity for change, symbolized by living water. This interaction reveals that Jesus encouraged people to acknowledge their own mistakes and choose a new path without the weight of public condemnation. He promoted personal accountability as an inner decision, rooted in the understanding that we grow through honest self-reflection rather than through judgment imposed by others. Jesus' approach also reveals the potential for identity transformation. Rather than labeling people based on their sins, he invited them to step into a new, redeemed identity. When Jesus forgave and healed the woman labeled as sinful who washed his feet, he accepted her past but did not define her by it. He offered her a new beginning, showing her that her identity could be one of love, devotion, and gratitude. This approach suggests that Jesus viewed sin as a temporary condition, not a permanent identity. He believed in each person's capacity to grow and evolve, inviting them to see themselves as God sees them, worthy of love and capable of redemption. His message asks us to see beyond our own labels and mistakes, opening our hearts to a renewed sense of self based on divine love. Furthermore, Jesus' interactions with sinners illustrate his commitment to solidarity with the marginalized. While religious authorities often separated themselves from those they considered impure, Jesus deliberately aligned himself with sinners, the poor, and the outcasts. By dining with tax collectors, befriending sinners, and healing lepers, Jesus rejected the social hierarchies that kept people in shame and isolation. He made it clear that no one was beyond God's reach or love. Jesus' solidarity with marginalized individuals teaches us that spiritual community includes everyone, especially those whom society has cast aside. His example invites us to look at our own communities and ask whether we are creating spaces of inclusion, where all are welcomed and valued. Another layer to Jesus' approach is his redefinition of holiness and purity. In a culture where purity was often associated with strict adherence to religious laws, Jesus redefined holiness as a matter of compassion and kindness rather than ritual purity. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, he highlighted that the righteous individuals who passed by the injured man were less virtuous than the Samaritan who stopped to help, despite Samaritans being viewed as impure by many Jews of that time. Jesus taught that true purity lies in the heart, in our willingness to act with love, mercy, and generosity. His teachings challenge us to redefine our own understanding of goodness, encouraging us to focus on how we treat others rather than external standards or appearances. Jesus' approach to sinners also emphasizes the transformative power of grace. Unlike the punitive measures often practiced in his time, Jesus' response to sin was rooted in grace. When Peter denied him 3 times, Jesus responded not with reproach but with a gentle invitation to reaffirm his love. Do you love me? John 21 verse 15. This interaction illustrates that grace can be a catalyst for profound change. Jesus believed that mercy, not condemnation, had the power to inspire self-reflection and a renewed commitment to goodness. By extending grace, Jesus demonstrated that divine love meets us where we are but doesn't leave us there. It empowers us to move forward, renewed. His approach invites us to see grace as a powerful tool for growth, one that frees us from shame and motivates us to live in alignment with our higher values. Additionally, Jesus' approach teaches us about the dignity of second chances. In his encounters with people who had sinned, Jesus didn't define them by their past mistakes. For instance, he restored Zacchaeus, the tax collector known for his corrupt practices, by accepting him and visiting his home. This act of respect and trust inspired Zacchaeus to change his ways and repay those he had wronged. Jesus' approach to giving second chances reveals his belief in the potential for human transformation. By showing us the value of second chances, Jesus invites us to embrace redemption in our own lives and in our relationships with others, trusting that people have the capacity to grow and learn from their mistakes. A profound element of Jesus' interactions with sinners is the message of radical hope. By offering forgiveness and new beginnings, he conveyed that no one is beyond redemption. His message transcends mere acceptance. It is an invitation to embrace a future where past mistakes are not obstacles but stepping stones to spiritual growth. Jesus taught that with faith and a sincere heart, anyone can return to a state of grace, no matter how far they may feel from it. This message of hope is a cornerstone of his teachings, showing us that divine love is an unending wellspring available to everyone. Jesus' emphasis on hope encourages us to see life as a journey where, at any moment, we can choose a new direction, motivated by love and grace. Finally, Jesus' approach reveals the depth of God's inclusivity and unconditional love. Through parables like the lost sheep and lost coin, Jesus illustrated that God actively seeks out those who have strayed, not to reprimand them but to welcome them back with joy. He described God as a shepherd who leaves 99 sheep to find the one lost, symbolizing a love that prioritizes each individual. This message was revolutionary, suggesting that God's love isn't reserved for the righteous alone but is especially focused on those who feel separated from it. Jesus' portrayal of divine love calls us to embrace an inclusive spirituality, one that sees each person's worth and potential and recognizes that no one is ever truly lost. His response to sin challenges societal norms, presenting an alternative way to understand justice, compassion, and our shared human journey. One unique aspect of Jesus' approach to sinners is his emphasis on inward transformation over outward punishment. Jesus knew that condemnation often leads to shame, which keeps people stuck in cycles of guilt. Instead of condemning people for their mistakes, he called them to inner change, to a realignment of heart and mind. This is evident in his interactions with Matthew, the tax collector. Rather than pointing out Matthew's sins, Jesus invited him to follow him, encouraging a life of service and integrity. Jesus recognized that true transformation happens internally and that lasting change doesn't come from public shame or fear of punishment, but from a shift in values and perspective. His approach teaches us that meaningful change requires addressing the underlying motivations and beliefs that lead to harmful behaviors. Additionally, Jesus' interactions with sinners reveal his focus on empathy as a path to understanding and healing. Jesus had a way of seeing past people's actions to understand their inner struggles. This empathy allowed him to respond with compassion, seeing people's flaws as expressions of their pain, fears, or unmet needs. When he met the Samaritan woman at the well, for instance, he engaged her in a conversation that acknowledged her situation without condemnation. By understanding her, he offered her a path forward rather than a reminder of her mistakes. Jesus' empathy teaches us that understanding the root of someone's behavior can open a path to genuine healing, both for ourselves and for others. His example invites us to see beyond surface judgments, to recognize the common humanity in each person's journey. Jesus' approach also demonstrates the idea of redemption as a process, not a one-time event. He did not expect people to change instantly. Instead, he encouraged them to take small, significant steps toward a better life. When he told the woman caught in adultery, "Go and sin no more," he wasn't demanding perfection but inviting her to make gradual, consistent changes. Jesus understood that redemption is a journey that requires patience, resilience, and community support. His emphasis on process shows us that everyone deserves time to learn, grow, and evolve. By embracing this approach, we become more compassionate and supportive, recognizing that true transformation often requires time and that setbacks are part of growth. Another critical aspect of Jesus' attitude toward sinners is his willingness to meet people where they were. Rather than expecting people to reach a certain level of worthiness before engaging with them, Jesus stepped into their lives as they were, in all their imperfection. He visited Zacchaeus' home even before Zacchaeus had repented of his wrongdoings. This act of acceptance created a space where Zacchaeus felt empowered to change. Jesus' approach shows us that love and acceptance are powerful catalysts for growth, and that sometimes, just being present with someone can inspire them to embrace a new path. This willingness to meet people as they are is a reminder that connection, not perfection, is the foundation of spiritual transformation. Moreover, Jesus' approach was revolutionary in how he challenged societal labels and stigmas. In a culture where certain people were labeled as sinners or unclean, Jesus shattered these labels by embracing everyone with dignity and compassion. He saw past social labels to the unique, divine worth of each individual, from prostitutes to lepers to tax collectors. Jesus' actions suggest that labeling people by their worst mistakes or behaviors limits their potential for change, creating a culture of exclusion rather than one of healing. By removing stigmas, Jesus encouraged us to see people's humanity, and to believe that they, too, can grow beyond their pasts. This approach asks us to let go of labels that restrict others, and ourselves, embracing the potential for change in everyone. A further aspect of Jesus' teachings on sin and redemption is his focus on restoring relationships and community. For Jesus, forgiveness and acceptance weren't just about individual salvation, they were about healing and reintegrating people back into the community. By forgiving the outcast and healing the sick, Jesus didn't just absolve them of sin, he restored their place in society. His actions reveal that spiritual healing and community healing are intertwined. A person's dignity and value are best realized within supportive, loving relationships. Jesus showed that welcoming people back into community is an essential part of redemption. This perspective challenges us to create spaces where individuals, no matter their past, can feel they belong, encouraging communities to be places of reconciliation, support, and growth. Furthermore, Jesus' approach to sinners reflects the idea that humility is central to forgiveness. Jesus was always humble, quick to listen and slow to judge, and he encouraged this humility in others. When he taught, "Judge not, that you be not judged," he wasn't just telling people to avoid judging others, he was encouraging them to look within, to see their own vulnerabilities and shortcomings. This humility fosters a culture where forgiveness flows naturally, rooted in the understanding that we all fall short at times. Jesus' humility reminds us that forgiveness is an act of grace rather than superiority, a recognition of our shared need for mercy. His approach challenges us to see forgiveness as a gift, not only for the one receiving it but also for the one giving it. A particularly powerful aspect of Jesus' refusal to condemn is his message of hope that even the most lost can find redemption. In the parable of the lost sheep, Jesus spoke of a shepherd who leaves 99 sheep to find the one that is lost. This story conveys that no one is ever too far gone, that every person is worth seeking out and saving. Jesus' belief in redemption is a profound statement on the value of every human soul, emphasizing that God's love actively reaches out to those who feel disconnected or unworthy. This message of hope calls us to approach others with the same unyielding belief in their worth and potential for transformation. Finally, Jesus' approach reflects his vision of a compassionate justice that uplifts rather than punishes. While he did not ignore wrongdoing, he believed that justice should be restorative, not retributive. In his interactions, Jesus sought to bring people to a better understanding of themselves and their place in the world, rather than simply punishing them for their mistakes. His message reveals a God who seeks to heal brokenness rather than condemn it. Jesus' model of justice encourages us to focus on helping individuals grow and find purpose, rather than simply seeking to punish or exclude. This approach to justice invites us to create systems and societies that encourage restoration, growth, and healing as essential parts of accountability. In every aspect of his approach, Jesus redefines how we understand sin, justice, and forgiveness. His message invites us to let go of harsh judgment, to embrace empathy, and to believe in each person's capacity to change. Jesus teaches us that forgiveness is more than a duty, it is a profound act of love and strength, one that opens doors for transformation and fosters a world where grace is available to all. By refusing to condemn, Jesus showed us that true spiritual power lies in compassion, that love can heal even the deepest wounds, and that each of us is worthy of redemption. His message encourages us to look at ourselves and others with mercy, challenging us to embrace a path of love that uplifts, restores, and transforms. We find that Jesus' approach to sin and forgiveness touches on even more complex and revolutionary ideas, offering a fresh understanding of divine love, personal growth, and the nature of true spiritual community. Each interaction Jesus had with those deemed sinners opens up profound lessons on how we can create a world that encourages transformation rather than exclusion, and acceptance over rejection. One striking aspect of Jesus' approach is his emphasis on healing the underlying causes of sin. Jesus saw sin not merely as a moral failure but as a symptom of deeper pain, loneliness, or spiritual separation. For instance, when he healed individuals who were ostracized or isolated due to illness, he restored their sense of worth and belonging, addressing the root causes of their despair and self-worth issues. His compassion reveals an understanding that people often turn to destructive behaviors out of a sense of brokenness, fear, or unmet needs. By healing these underlying wounds, Jesus showed that true transformation begins when people feel valued and whole. His approach encourages us to look at the factors that contribute to harmful behavior, poverty, isolation, trauma, and seek to address these in a way that uplifts rather than punishes. Additionally, Jesus' interactions with sinners illustrate his commitment to fostering personal empowerment. Rather than imposing guilt or shame, he often spoke directly to people's potential for growth and renewal. By empowering people to make their own choices and embrace their capacity for change, Jesus demonstrated a deep respect for human agency. In the story of the woman caught in adultery, Jesus did not condemn her. Instead, he simply told her to go and sin no more. His response empowered her to take control of her life and embrace a new path. Jesus' respect for individual choice and growth challenges us to see others not as objects of judgment but as active participants in their own journey. This approach suggests that offering support, encouragement, and resources can often be more transformative than imposing guilt. Jesus also emphasized the importance of love over law. While he respected the law, he often broke social and religious norms when they conflicted with love and compassion. When he healed on the Sabbath, he challenged the rigid interpretation of the law, showing that the spirit of love should always take precedence over strict adherence to rules. Jesus' prioritization of love over law invites us to rethink the way we approach moral codes, rules, and policies. His approach suggests that genuine transformation cannot be legislated or enforced through rules alone, it must be inspired by compassion. This challenges us to adopt a moral perspective rooted in empathy, always asking whether our judgments and actions are truly serving others or simply serving tradition. A further dimension of Jesus' approach is his understanding of community as a source of redemption. By drawing near to those whom society considered unworthy, Jesus demonstrated that no one is beyond belonging. When he dined with tax collectors, prostitutes, and others labeled as sinners, he invited them to share in community, to feel accepted and respected. His willingness to engage with outcasts wasn't only about forgiving their sins, it was about reintegrating them into society, allowing them to rebuild their lives with support. Jesus' example teaches us that community is essential to healing and growth. When people feel supported and included, they are more likely to pursue positive change. His approach reminds us to create inclusive communities that extend grace to everyone, offering spaces where people can transform without the fear of exclusion. Additionally, Jesus' teachings reveal the transformative power of self-compassion. When he encouraged people to forgive others, he also implied the importance of forgiving oneself. Self-compassion, Jesus suggested, is essential to moving forward from past mistakes. For instance, after Peter denied him 3 times, Jesus didn't reprimand Peter. Instead, he asked Peter if he loved him and gently reinstated him as a leader. This act of grace allowed Peter to forgive himself and embrace his mission with renewed commitment. Jesus taught that self-compassion is crucial for overcoming self-condemnation, enabling us to learn from our mistakes and find the strength to grow. His example challenges us to be gentle with ourselves, recognizing that healing requires as much self-compassion as it does forgiveness from others. A profound layer of Jesus' approach to sinners is his redefinition of worthiness. In a society where worth was often measured by status, adherence to the law, or social reputation, Jesus challenged these standards by showing that everyone is inherently worthy of love. The parable of the prodigal son illustrates this well. Despite the son's mistakes, he is welcomed home with open arms, without any conditions or judgments. Jesus' actions and stories suggest that worthiness is intrinsic, not based on behavior or societal standing. This perspective invites us to reject the conditional standards we often place on ourselves and others, reminding us that each person's worth is rooted in their humanity. It asks us to see everyone, including ourselves, as deserving of love and belonging. Another key dimension of Jesus' approach is his demonstration of hope in the face of failure. Jesus showed that failure is not the end of the story but a stepping stone on the journey to spiritual growth. In the case of Peter's denial, Jesus did not define Peter by this failure. Instead, he saw it as part of Peter's learning process. Jesus' message was that our mistakes do not disqualify us from grace or from our purpose. This belief in the redemptive power of failure invites us to approach our own setbacks with patience and faith, seeing them as opportunities for growth rather than reasons for shame. Jesus' example encourages us to view each failure as a chance to learn, grow, and recommit to our values. Jesus' approach to sin and forgiveness also reflects the call to become agents of grace. Rather than waiting for others to change before accepting them, Jesus modeled proactive compassion. He reached out, touched the untouchable, and spoke to the unspoken. His life shows that grace is an action, a choice we make to see beyond others' mistakes to their true potential. Jesus' approach calls us to practice grace actively, to be the ones who initiate healing and connection. This perspective is a reminder that grace is not just a gift we receive but a responsibility we carry, inviting us to be a source of love and acceptance in others' lives. Finally, Jesus' approach highlights the role of love as the ultimate healer. He understood that love could achieve what judgment never could. By offering love instead of condemnation, Jesus broke down barriers of fear and resentment, inviting people to see themselves through the lens of divine compassion. His consistent message was that love is the path to wholeness, that when we feel loved, we can face even the hardest truths about ourselves with courage. Jesus' radical love inspired those around him to embrace a better path, a better self. This approach encourages us to see love not as passive acceptance but as a powerful force for transformation, one that guides others toward healing and reconciliation. In every dimension of his approach to sinners, Jesus reveals a transformative way of relating to others and to ourselves. His message is clear: we are all on a journey of growth, and love is the guiding light that can lead us through our imperfections toward wholeness. By rejecting condemnation and embracing compassion, Jesus offered a vision of spiritual life that values redemption over judgment, unity over division, and healing over punishment. His approach invites us to live with open hearts, to seek connection rather than separation, and to recognize the divine potential within each of us. As we strive to embody these principles, we find that Jesus' teachings have the power to reshape not only our relationships but our entire view of humanity and grace. In every way, Jesus' approach to sinners teaches us that love, compassion, and understanding are at the heart of true transformation. His example challenges us to see beyond mistakes, to recognize the potential in every person, and to build communities where grace and growth go hand in hand. Imagine what our lives, and our world, might look like if we embraced this radical approach to love and forgiveness. So, what other profound, and sometimes surprising, lessons might we find in Jesus' teachings? Join me in the next video as we continue uncovering the depths of his wisdom and explore how his revolutionary approach can inspire us today. This journey of discovery is just beginning. Let's dive deeper together.